There's this conversation right now about some DAOs not being DAOs or some DAOs not working, this and that. We kind of want to prove people wrong. And the whole thing in the outside especially is like, yo, we can build a community-owned DAO that, governs over this conglomerate we're trying to build. And that's going to actually reward its participants and its holders for being there in the long term.
Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. I'm Carly Riley, and today I am joined by Farokh and Mel, who are instrumental and the leaders behind Rug Radio, which is a project I've spoken about multiple times on this show. I'm really excited about it. It is fundamentally a decentralized media company led by Farokh, who has been building communities, social media brands for a decade at this point. And it's a substantive project that goes beyond your typical PFP. One of my sort of mottos for this year have been NFTs beyond PFPs. So I'm really interested in exploring different use cases for the blockchain and for NFTs. And Rug Radio is just a fascinating example of one. I say this, I think, during the episode, but I think there's a world where Rug Radio is studied at Harvard Business School in the decades to come, because they are really trying to fundamentally change the incentive structure within our media industry today, which is something I'm passionate about. I'm fairly critical of media. I will see if it works, or how it works, or how it interacts or compares to traditional media structures. I think it'll be fascinating to watch it evolve. These are two really smart people. I was thrilled to get to talk to Mel and understand her a little bit better. She handled the tokenomics structure behind Rug Radio, which is complicated and involved. We get into that. We get into what Farokh's looking for as they bring on talent to host shows through their Rug Radio platform. We talk philosophically about media and how Web3 can disrupt it and improve our current systems. So a ton of meat in this episode. I think it's a long one because I was having so much fun talking to them, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed having it. Thanks for being here. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll get into the conversation with Farokh and Mel.
Axie Infinity is a game universe filled with cute, fascinating little creatures called Axies that players can collect as pets. Players aim to battle, breed, collect, raise, and build kingdoms for their Axies. There are and will be many varied gaming experiences for Axies, many of them having players compete with each other using complex strategies and tactics to attain top rankings or be rewarded with coveted resources. Others will have them complete quests, defeat bosses, and unlock in-depth storylines. There are countless unique Axies that players can collect with varying body parts and experiences. The Axie universe is a player-owned economy where the players can truly own, buy, sell, and trade the resources they earn in the game through skilled gameplay and contributions to the ecosystem. It's a digital nation where people come together globally with their Axies to play, earn, and live. Join the Axie revolution at axieinfinity.com/bankless. Polygon is Ethereum's largest and most vibrant scaling solution to date. With millions of monthly users and all of the biggest DeFi apps, the Polygon ecosystem has turned into a blossoming metropolis of DeFi activity. Transactions on Polygon are quick and cheap, allowing users the freedom to achieve their DeFi goals, all while being economically anchored to Ethereum. But Polygon isn't just the proof-of-stake sidechain. The Polygon team is building a suite of scaling solutions, including Polygon Hermes, Maiden, Nightfall, and Zero, all with different design choices in order to be optimized for all possible crypto use cases. If you're a developer who wants to build on the Polygon ecosystem, go to the link in the show notes to check out their fantastic documentation. And if you're a user who just wants to experience fast and cheap DeFi, you can bridge over your ETH or other tokens and start playing around with any of the thousands of applications that are available on Polygon.
Hello, everyone. GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. I say that I am excited for every episode of Overpriced JPEGs. I feel like I always kick it off being like, I'm so excited for this episode. And I mean that, but I really am so excited for this episode. Today on the show, we have Farokh and Mel, who are the team really behind Rug Radio, Farokh being the founder of Rug Radio, Mel being an advisor who specializes in tokenomic structures, and I believe in Farokh's word, the biggest brain in the game, an important identifier for Mel. So we have them both here. Folks who have listened to this podcast a bit know that I'm a really big fan of Rug Radio and think it's a really fascinating project. I'm also fascinated by how media works writ large. And so really looking forward to diving more into this project with you too. So thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you, Carly.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
And thank you for mentioning us. That's how we reached out, right? Like everyone was like, yo, overpriced JPEGs, Bankless, blah, blah, blah. Like they're talking about you. And I'm like, let's connect. So it's a pleasure to be there.
It brings me so much joy when communities are like excited if I talk. The space is just so beautiful. There's so much like love and positivity, and it's a beautiful thing. So let's start the kind of simple. Give your kind of backgrounds. Maybe Farokh, starting with you. Folks, I'm sure, are familiar with you, but maybe don't really know your story. And it's amazing. You've been basically a community builder professionally for like a decade, and you're young. So that's really saying something. So talk a little bit about that journey. And then Mel, would love for you to do the same, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, my name's Farokh Sarmad, 27-year-old entrepreneur. I've been building communities on social media since as long as I remember. I made my first Facebook page when I was 12 years old. That's when it came out. And ever since, I've been just like obsessed with the idea of like being able to reach like millions of people from the tip of your thumbs, right? Just like that. You have your phone, you just be able to reach people. So ever since, I've just been navigating through social media. When I was 15 is when I really got into it deep, like with Tumblr. And I feel like a lot of the OG like internet kids actually come from that whole like space, like the whole Tumblr scene and stuff like that. And then I built a blog, became one of the biggest luxury blogs in the space. Then 3 years later, and mind you, like unpaid, just building community, et cetera, got onto Instagram in 2014, so early Instagram days, and I was like, wow, like this thing is gonna revolutionize the world. Like everybody's on it, scrolling. How do I like monetize this and build a business on this platform so that I can take the ad spots away from TV and stuff like platforms and Web 1 things we don't consume and bring it to Web 2 and sort of like build something for myself. So within 2 years, I went from 0 to 10 million followers on Instagram organically across multiple pages, built my business on there out of nothing, like really from scratch. And for the years to come, I just built a just like a media company where I would do like branding, marketing, build communication strategies online for clients, right? And with an expertise in personal branding. That's how I met like the likes of Gary Vee and all these people early on in 2015. And then end of 2021, peak pandemic, Clubhouse is popping, right? It was the place to be because it was the only live social audio channel, right? And so I got on one night, December 28th, and I opened the room to 2 people for 4 hours. And that's when I realized the power of live social audio. So I got hooked onto it because, in my opinion, voice is the most powerful tool anybody has. And fast forward, February 2021, one night I'm on Clubhouse, midnight, and I end up in an NFT room. And the rest is history. Like I met everybody from Thank You X, Ferocious, and all the biggest artists and builders in the space back then. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Woke up the next day, dropped everything I was doing in my like Web 2 business, literally cut it down. I was like, I'm going all into this because I always had this vision of being able to build something really big, but I guess I didn't have the tools in Web 2, right, on these platforms. And I immediately saw the opportunity on here. So started building brand in the NFT space, started uplifting and elevating artists and builders and people in the space in general, whether it was through raising money, helping artists or building community, etc. And then fast forward to September 2021, one night on Twitter Spaces, because Twitter Spaces came around in July last year, we really all moved to Spaces. Fast forward, one night we're like, hey, like we're on Spaces for like 10 hours straight. And then someone in my Spaces is like, in my Discord is like, yo, it sucks I can't partake in this conversation anymore. I got to go back to my $11 an hour job tomorrow, word for word. And in my head, I'm like, wait, how do we create some sort of like UBI or income, right? Because Web3 can probably do that, where people can participate to earn, right? And be a part of our spaces, be a part of our content that they're consuming, but turn them from consumers to participants and be able to build something bigger and build like a Web3 media company. So I'm on stage, like you have John Knopf right there, photographer, one of my best friends in the space. He's like, hey, like I want to help you build this. And I'm like, okay, we need a tokenomics person. And then I'm like, who wants to be the head of tokenomics? Like, yo, I know this genius. Like, her name is Mel, blah, blah, blah. And like, Mel chimes in. And I'm like, do you want to be queen of tokenomics? And she's like, yeah, I'll take it. And so that's how I met Mel. September 19th, that night. And then our friend Jeremiah is like, yo, I'll make a POAP for time. Like, you want to be do the artwork and stuff? He's like, yeah, I'll be the creative director. I'll do the artwork. And so he ended up doing the art for like the tokens, and Jess as well chimed in. So, and then a bunch of people like, I'll host this, I'll host that. So that's kind of like how we came to Rug Radio, but I know we'll get to that. But yeah, so that's kind of like my background, what TLDR led me to that point, and how I met Mel and how Rug Radio started.
It's amazing. This such a like microcosm of what this space is. It's just like a bunch of people hanging out being like, this is a good idea. Let's go do this. Mel, I want to get into your background, but I want to quickly just I think you made a really interesting point there around somebody's hanging out in your space for 10 hours and is like, okay, I gotta, or can't stay for the 10 hours or whatever it is. Cause they're like, I have to go and do this job that I hate to make not enough money, probably even really to live the life that I want. And it's like, how can we change that dynamic? I think, right. Like it's somebody is making money off the fact that that dude is on your space for 10 hours, right? Like this is not, oh, I'm doing nothing. So how is somebody supposed to earn money for doing nothing? Like, no, like Twitter's making money off the fact that that dude is in your space for 10 hours. And I think the core of what I find so interesting of what you're trying to do is to say, okay, why can't that person be one of the people making money off of that fact? Because somebody is profiting off of this. I think that's like really the core you're tapping into, which is awesome. But we will of course get there. Mel, can you? I get your sort of story and your version of how this all came to be.
Yes, of course. So my background's probably a little bit different to Farokh's, probably because we came up in a different generation. And so my background, I started my first company when I was 19 years old, and I was somehow fluked out. It was to complete luck because I obviously had no idea what I was doing. And sold that company when I was 22. And then I was got the bug, whatever that bug is, which is the building bug. And I built a few more companies after that, sold a few more. And then just as the Ethereum white paper came out, I had sold my last company. And I read the white paper it was about 8 months after it came out. And I was completely blown away by it. It was my like watershed moment of this is going to change everything. Like this is going to change the world.
What was that click? Sorry, not to interrupt you.
I mean, this might be slightly esoteric, but this is kind of how I got to it. I had spent a little bit of time in my company beforehand in organic agriculture. And one of the principles that I studied was biodynamics, which looks at the complexity in nature. Natural, complex, decentralized systems is what nature actually runs by. And when I read the Ethereum white paper, I could just see that. I could see that it had a natural, complex system element to it. And I was like, oh, hang on a second. This is all the things that usually don't work kind of taken care of, like in its most ideal application. This removes the things that we complicate in complexity, like as humans, right? And if you could remove those things, you get this beautiful flow, this beautiful natural system that can work. And so I just like a lot of people, I think, especially at that time, it was a really idealist time in the ecosystem. And I just fell in love with it and the potential of it. And I kind of never let that go. And we all obviously know what happened between then and now. Like there was a lot of ups and a lot of very lows. But I just, I just tried to, I tried to learn. Like I came in with a complete beginner's mindset into the space because I knew nothing. And it was so hard to find stuff. And, I just was trying to read everything I could get my hands on and understand everything I could. And I did that for years and years and years before I even did anything. And then slowly started to just put myself and get involved in different projects. And then over the last couple of years, I've been really fortunate to be heavily involved in, a number of projects that are really just on the tokenomics side of things. So I'm totally fascinated about how tokens work, how they fit together, what makes them cause different outcomes and externalities in the marketplace, and the power of those across really big scale, and what they can do for humanity and society, and the betterment of all those things. So yeah, I'm very much the decentralization purist, I guess you could say. Yeah,
That's amazing. So this was it 2015. Did you find Ethereum right when the white paper came out, or what year are we talking?
Yeah, it was just a little bit. It was just a little bit
Holy
after that.
crap.
Yeah, I just it was around about 8 months after. So it was really like at the very start, and it was hard at the beginning, hard as a woman,
God, yeah.
and hard at just in general to even know what the heck. I mean, it took me months to even figure out like how to do what a wallet was.
Yeah.
Like, let alone, like everybody sort of talks about their beginning journey, and you see it a lot in the space. And I have so much empathy still because, I mean, every single day, even now, like so many years in, I come across stuff and just go, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I know nothing.
Oh yeah, literally hourly. that complex system answer, and I want to get into Rug Radio because I'm worried I'm gonna need 2 hours just to get through Rug Radio because I have so much. But that's the most interesting answer I've ever heard of like somebody's click moment. Like I studied complex systems in nature and I saw Ethereum, and that's why I got like, what? Can you just as kind of quickly, if it's possible, like what does that actually mean? Like what was the complexity that was being abstracted away, or the potential there that you saw with Ethereum?
If you look at your garden, right? Like this is a really easy way of thinking about it. If you look at your garden and any sliver of the system that is your garden, like a rose bush in the soil and all the bugs around it and the rain and the atmosphere and the sun and all of the things that meet in to make that rose bush exist in your garden, that's a natural decentralized system, right? None of those components are talking to each other or enmeshed, but
the sun isn't being like, hey soil, do this now, hey grow now rose.
Yeah, it's like it's only existing because of each other's existence. Like it's a perpetual network effect of each other's existence constantly compounding on itself, right? And so I mean it's essentially like if you really break down crypto and the technology, that's kind of essentially how it works, right? And it's just a group of complex system compounding against each other. And so it just, after I had to spend a bit of time understanding those systems in nature for my last business. And so when I read the paper, even though I didn't understand the technical elements, like the hard technology of it, I understood the merit of what it was trying to achieve. And so it just made sense. And so when you have human intervention in complex systems, so there's like complexity and then there's complicated. Complicated is usually what humans bring into the mix, and complexity is usually a natural function. And so complicated is when you stop a natural system in its flow, like a dam, for example, and you reroute it somewhere else for a different cause, and that always has externalities and effects. And so often relationships cause that, and when you remove trust and relationship from the equation, which is again essentially what crypto is doing, you don't have to trust each side, they intersect and interact without that. And so that then allows a freedom of movement and a freedom of interaction that removes complicated from the complexity. So that's
Holy
the way
shit.
that I saw it.
That's fascinating. That's a very, very cool analogy that I have never heard before. Okay, well, we're going to dive into, if that's your take on just Ethereum broadly, I'm really excited to get into Rug Radio tokenomics. But let's start. I want to kind of start, I think both like broad and philosophical, but also kind of specific, right? About like what Rug Radio is. I think high level, it's like, well, go ahead and give your spiel as to what radio is, and then I'll kind of want to take us a couple places.
Yeah, I mean, what we're trying to build with Rug Radio and what we're building is we're trying to build, that's what we want, a fully decentralized Web3 media company. So I see Rug Radio really just like this like big conglomerate that's like literally obviously governed by DAO, and it's tokenized, where our holders have ownership over the ecosystem, right? So when I speak of it as a conglomerate, that means that Rug Radio is a media brand, it's an incubator, it's an accelerator, and it just is this like laying foundation in Web3 for people to build on top of. Like literally when you build a house, you put a rug on the floor and then you put your couch and then you put this and that, right? Like it's funny, there's a bunch of puns that they can play around with rug, right? More than just a rug pull. And so really like this is the infrastructure. Like I come from the media background, not as much like crypto as Mel does, but to me, like the space was fascinating about NFT space. It's like the meeting of the minds between internet kids and crypto OGs that got here together, and that just met in the NFT space and that are building Web3 together. And like it's to me, it's incredible what you can build through that. So Rug Radio is just like there's just so many layers to it. We have the shows that we've launched already. It's about 15-20 shows. We're looking to launch 50 pilot shows right now. There's media partnerships that we're working on actively with large brands in the space in order to help them really be in tune with the space, right? And create content with them and for them. And there's also the partnership and accelerator side where we can incubate our own projects from the community in order to allow them to grow and build within the ecosystem, because we're going to be a DAO, right? The DAO launches very soon in the next 2 weeks. And and it's going to be governed by the people, and that's essentially what Rug Radio is. There's just it's this big living breathing organism where everybody can come in and build on top of and work within. And that's really just what we wanted, is to be able to reward listeners and participants for just being a part of it, and to be able to really just build this house for everyone in Web3 and the NFT space to just be able to come into and to build. Like, I didn't want to just go and drop like a PFP project and just just do my thing. It's like, no, Rug Radio is literally just for everybody to come inside of and just learn and build. Like, we're really big on education. That's why we have a Learn to Earn program that's launched right now. We have like tokenomics courses, smart contracts classes. We had one today, classes on DAOs, etc. But it's just, that's what it is, right? And in my opinion, in my eyes, that's kind of like the way I see it, evolving.
What I think is so interesting about this is we're kind of living through this age that I think is like the fall of institutions. And like, you see it in the fact that, Joe Rogan, the individual, has 11 million whatever downloads an episode or whatever it comes out to be, right? And CNN has far fewer nightly viewers at this point, right? It's this move to people trusting people rather than people trusting institutions. And that'll ebb and flow over time, probably for forever more, but we're definitely in this trusting people era. And I think what's really interesting is your model is tapping into that. And the first example I know where like you're making a really big bet on tapping into that in, I think, a really interesting way. But I want to say, so I think when people think about media companies, like we think about CNN, which is like obviously centralized, but probably not a good comp here in a couple different ways. Or you think of maybe like a Gimlet Media, which is, okay, we have this network of podcasts, they're ad supported, which is how Gimlet makes money and the individual shows, and then they pay that out to the creators, et cetera. And, it's a ecosystem that helps each other out because they share producers, like they share the costs among a bunch of different shows, and then they have ads and they pay it out. My sense on what radio is doing is it's a network of hosts, which is already kind of interesting because it's not like a network of TV shows or a network of podcasts. It's more a network of people. There's already sort of this people first piece to it.
Yeah, 100%.
Is it Twitter Spaces exclusively right now?
Well, the thing is, we launched Twitter Spaces. That's where the community is, right? But we're platform agnostic. Like, we have people right now that I'm trying to help with. They have their YouTube shows or they have their podcasts, just like yourself. Like, Overpriced JPEGs could be a Rug Radio show and have a podcast, and we would equip you with a host pass, and you would still be a Rug Radio host, right? And you would still be able to find ways to reward your community using the Rug token, right? So it's really just platform agnostic. Obviously, if you ask me about dreams, aspirations, long-term visions, of course I want to build like a decentralized, Web3 platform for the people to own and to use. But for now, the thing is, the attention is on those Web2 platforms. The attention is on Twitter, on Discord, on Instagram, right? On YouTube, on Twitch, right? So we have to go get the attention everywhere. We have to educate the masses, right? This is the point we're at right now, is like everybody and their mothers want to learn about Web3 and NFTs, or at least as a keyword. They know the buzzword, but they don't understand it yet. So if we, as a big media brand, which obviously started with my personal brand, right? Which was big enough in the space, and then I can take a step back and help others build theirs, and we come all together and we truly educate the masses, then we can take that energy and build something that we're actually going to own. I've been a user of these platforms for decades, like for as long as I can remember, right? And the thing is, I've never gotten anything out of it. Like Instagram, even though I had 15 million followers doing 1 billion impressions a month, didn't pay me. I had to go out there and build systems and businesses and this and that and grind it to get something out of it. But at the end of the day, you're just enriching the platform, right? No matter what the platform is, all the Web2 platforms, it's just exactly how it is, right? Mm-hmm. But we're live in a day and age, right? And nobody speaks to decentralization better than Mel here, where we can actually build something and where all of our time and energy goes towards building the actual greater good. It's almost like positive sum capitalism, where we can like just build something and like all have a piece of it, own it, vote on it, make the decisions and drive it.
So spell this out, because again, if I have a podcast I want to do and I go with Gimlet, they have a bunch of ad partners. They're gonna throw those ads onto my podcast, and they're gonna pay me. We're gonna negotiate a salary, whatever, right? And there we go. If I come to y'all and I'm like, hey, I want to do this Twitter space through Rug Radio, walk me through that process, and how does then the kind of ecosystem, the flow of money, like what support does Rug Radio give? How does that look?
I think, like, to answer this question, if we go back to your original question, which is you sort of proposed that like a CNN or a Gimlet was a web, like a Web 2 media company. I'd probably say they're actually Web 1 media companies. Web 2 media companies is Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat.
Yeah, I think that's spot on.
TikTok. And then Web 3 is where we're at now, right? And so when you reframe it like that, then you go, okay, so what did those companies do right? Right? Like, if we all know what they did wrong. We're all like a result, I guess, of what they've done wrong.
We're all still traumatized by all the things they're doing wrong.
I mean, totally, right. And we're all still participating in what they've done wrong. And so when you ask what they did right is they figured out how to organize really complex networks of people, really big, complex networks of people, right? And then the second thing that they did really well, even though it wasn't directed necessarily in the right direction, is they figured out how to extract value from those networks, right? So they know how to organize and they know how to find and extract value. Right? So both of those two things is really important when you're thinking about building any kind of organization, let alone a media organization. Right? And so when you think about, this sort of comes back to answer your second question, when you think about how do you create a new network in a decentralized way that's decentralized but organized and understands the extraction of value, and then takes that value and almost reverse engineers it. Instead of it going community platform, it goes platform, community, platform, right? And in a loop, right? Whereas before it was just a one-way trip. It was like community platform, that's it. And then maybe later on, if the company listed on the stock exchange, it may come back through a very, very like watered down version of return of value to the community again, right? Whereas the opportunity that the ecosystem in Web3 presents is the ability to take that value, redirect it, and create more freedom around where the content can then live, right? Because the way that you capture all the value is to capture all the content and to lock it to your platform, right? But if you remove that and you just say the value can exist as long as it's created, and here's a way to link that together and own a piece of it, no matter where you exist in the ecosystem. Right? And that's the role that the tokens play inside a decentralized ecosystem. They're sort of almost like moving around the background of the ecosystem like little beavers, per se, and saying, oh, I see value there. I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to push it through the network, and I'm going to make sure these 4 or 5 things are catered for by doing that. So here's a host. They get tokens for showing up and creating content. They get more value in ownership from continuing to do that content over time. They get value from every other single person that contributes to the network through the inherent value of the network. And then they get access to even more value depending on their motivation to build things in the ecosystem, right? And so they're all the things that were being extracted from you in the old ecosystem, but you're taking them and presenting them as ways to create value for yourself in the new network.
You're making your creators, your shareholders, sort of one and the same, as opposed to kind of 2 separate groups.
You're literally putting the creator at the epicenter of the whole thing. Like, that's what Mel's touching on. It's like, whereas like I've written about it a lot, like Web 2 is like platform, creators, community, consumer. We flip the script and now it's participant, creator, platform, but the creator is at the center of it. It's the bridge. It's what brings the two together and holds it together. So when we're talking about being putting emphasis in the space on the artists, on the creators, right? Because creators are artists, right? Whether you're a host or whether you're doing a podcast, you're an artist in a way, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur, builder, like there's art in that. There's artistry in that. And that's what we focus on, right? And it's on putting that first and forward. So we found a way for everybody that's hosting with us to their host pass, right? Because we did the membership pass. You're probably going to get to that later or whatever,
Yeah.
but membership
Yeah.
pass, the NFTs. We also have the host passes where these creators can get rewarded for participating within the Rug Radio ecosystem and therefore have more access, more chances to earn to participate, but also more ownership.
Awesome. Mel, did you have a thought you wanted to finish before I kind of ask? And it'll be on the tokenomic front, my next question, but.
Yeah. So the other thing that's important to think about when you're thinking about the creation and the receiving of value in this kind of ecosystem is that there's a complete delineation between person and wallet. Right. That's what Web3 does as well. It delineates your identity from your movement in an ecosystem. So you can move through an ecosystem as an anonymous person, as an anonymous entity, completely separate your identity from that, but not do that at the cost of the ecosystem. So the ecosystem still benefits from understanding your movement and your actions and reactions and intersections with the ecosystem. But I don't know who you are as the creator of a token, right? I just know that there's a wallet there. Right? And so it allows value to sit separate from identity, which is a really important part of rethinking media, right? Because the way that media has happened up until this point, especially in Web 2, is most of the value has been extracted from identity, right? And if you remove identity from the equation, then substance must replace it. Right? And so over time, even though at the beginning it doesn't feel like that, over time, as that evolves, it means the incentives are not on identity, they're on action and building and creating and
An output.
something in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's like it's a different interaction, contribution. It's a different incentive model completely, right? So those two things change the kind of value, the way you benefit from that value, the position of that value in the overall ecosystem, how much power you get from that.
So I think this is, again, fascinating, of course, and there's so many layers to why it's awesome and fascinating. I think it also is probably still kind of abstract for folks to kind of wrap their head around this, which is why I think let's talk about the tokenomic model and then get kind of like whether it's where things are right now or in a year or two where you imagine things being of like what is like in practical terms, I come join Rug Radio. What's happening when I start that journey? So I want to do that, and I want to do kind of the tokenomic side. Would it be helpful to talk through tokenomics first, maybe to get into that, or to talk about the?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably easier to understand the structure first, and then focus very much about the future of the space and what's being built there and so forth. So,
Cool.
So obviously I've sort of prefaced all of this with the kind of reasoning behind it, which is what we were just talking about. It's a little bit more esoteric, but it's like putting specific tangible words on what we've all experienced in the previous ecosystems, right? And so how do you make a tokenomic structure that actually does that? And it's something that I've thought about for a number of years. It's not a new thing, right? It's not an easy thing to kind of think through. Like there's a lot of complications and all of that. There's a lot of externalities, and when you talk about social networks, there's also the unknown unknowns are really, really big because you never really know what's going to happen when you put something out into the marketplace like this, right? So you're sort of thinking through lots of scenarios. But so when the way that we've sort of worked out the structure of this is really in three core segments. The first segment is the DAO, and the DAO is the heart of ownership in the ecosystem. And so, like, I'm sure your audience is probably educated enough to know this, but it's a decentralized autonomous organization. And our DAO is not an investment DAO; it's a community DAO, which means it's a not-for-profit. It's an unincorporated not-for-profit which acts as a club in the ecosystem. I think Bankless is the same as this.
Bankless has a DAO. It's sort of a dual structure. So, but yeah, they've got a DAO component.
There you go. So what does that mean? And then how is Rug's DAO set up? It's set up so that the people that interact with this ecosystem can own the ecosystem. And it was a completely fair launch in the sense that even everybody that built the project, everybody that's in the project, and everyone that bought the project in the marketplace all had exactly the same access to get into the project at the same time. So, for example, Farokh and I actually had a moment where it was like well after the launch, and we've gone, oh my God, we didn't buy any tokens. Like, we didn't buy a membership pass, we didn't buy an NFT. Right? And so we're like out in the marketplace going, oh, quick, let's buy one. Right? You know, because we were building it and we forgot. And so, you know, that's the first point of a DAO. A DAO, really, to be properly decentralized, needs to be a fair launch. And then the second part of the DAO was governance, right? And this is something that we're in the middle of launching right now. But there's two parts to the Rug Radio DAO. There's the Rug broader DAO, and then there's sub DAOs. And the first sub DAO is the tokenomics area, which is called Rug Bank. And the Rug Bank sits in the heart of the Rug DAO, which manages the movement of tokens and the structure of the tokenomics process through the ecosystem. And the reason there's a separate DAO or a sub DAO inside our DAO is that the Rug Bank is held under different governance structures than the broader DAO ecosystem. And that allows the tokenomic structure to be able to function properly in the ecosystem. So as far as DAOs go, we work with the incredible team at Syndicate DAO, who are really just the absolute benchmark for how to build and think through the complexities of a large-scale DAO. And they helped us figure out the best way to structure the DAO so that we know that we can keep the tokenomic structure going over the long term, but also make it the most fair ownership structure for the people inside it. Right, so there's a DAO, and the DAO has the Rug Bank inside it. And the next middle part so there's three parts to the ecosystem. The middle part is the membership layer, right? And the membership NFTs, and I don't want to get too much into the technicality of it, but I do get really excited and I geek out about the smart contract.
It is totally exciting, just when you actually
say it. This is why the podcast exists, for long form nerding out. Give us the nerd fest on it.
Straight up, like, there's so much layers to this structure. It's not just, oh, hey, rugs, like, you know?
So the membership layer was actually the first out of a kind released composable NFT. And so what's a composable NFT? Well, a composable NFT is when the NFT can actually change its status and its memory, per se, according to what you do with it inside an ecosystem. So you can burn actions onto your NFT as a member, and then your NFT becomes a reflection or a mirror of everything that you have personally done within an ecosystem, right? So the kind of detail of potentiality of what this actual contract can do is so unreal, and I'm so excited that as we launch other things where we start talking about the other features that it can do, but just as a starting point, so it's this composable NFT, and what that allows people to do, or us to do, is to use it in a number of really dynamic ways. And when you have membership and like flexibility, you have something really interesting as far as what you can then do to reward your members and have them participate in the ecosystem over the long term.
I'm taking notes, by the way. Like, if anybody's seeing me, if anybody's seeing me turn away, it's because I'm like literally taking notes. That's why I keep looking away. So keep going. But if anybody's watching on YouTube and they're like, why? I'm like, no, I'm literally like, I'm in school.
I love that.
That's what's happening. I'll share them too. I feel like if you're a listener at home, you want those notes. Good. Continue.
So helpful. The more of that in the marketplace, the better. Yeah. So I really appreciate that. So the membership layer has 3 levels. The first level is the members. So that's anybody that has a membership NFT that's participating in the ecosystem. That membership NFT is theirs, and we use it for a whole heap of different host of things in the ecosystem. The second layer of membership area is the partner pass. We actually haven't launched our partner pass yet, but Syndicate are building an incredible platform, which is essentially like Upwork but on chain. And our partner pass will give anybody in our ecosystem the ability to contribute to anything that's needed in our ecosystem and be paid on chain, and have a record on chain, like an on chain CV of tasks completed. Similar to what Balaji has done and built with
1729.
1792, is it right?
1729, yeah.
29, that's it. Sorry, my bad.
No, good, yeah.
Yeah. So he's doing micropayments in Bitcoin and then doing on-chain records of people's participation in projects. What that does is it means you don't have to trust me when I say I've done XYZ project. You can just look at my token and it says it on chain, right? And so
And it's
again,
that transferable
trustlessness
reputation
and
too.
beautiful.
Now I can kind of move anywhere and I
Correct.
have that trustless, transferable reputation.
Correct.
That's
That's
awesome.
how it should be.
Totally.
Exactly. Check the chain.
Correct. Right. And so and then like actually on that point, so what else is coming down the pipeline with Ethereum, with Login with Ethereum, which is an incredible project that I recommend everybody go and check out and have a look at, is the capacity to also have people follow your wallets on chain. And so you can bring your followers anywhere, right?
Yep.
And so all of a sudden you have your reputation, your followers, all on something that is immutable and yours, and you own it, and you can bring it with you anywhere. And so the power of that is really extraordinary and really exciting. So that's a little bit away from being launched. It's a couple of months away of being launched, but we're super, super, super jazzed to even be a part of the beta program that Syndicate are putting forward for that, and just excited. So, so that's the middle layer. And then the bottom layer of that is then the hosts. And who are the hosts? The hosts are anybody that contribute any kind of content into the ecosystem. And the hosts then receive a payment of tokens depending on how often they contribute and for how long they contribute. So it's about volume and length of time for that incentive structure. And so if that's the middle layer, which is the membership structure, then there's the final layer, which is the token, right? The utility token. And so the utility token was launched as a NFT, which might sound a little bit strange to people because it's not the usual way that you release a token. So there's something really important that we wanted to achieve with the utility token, and that was consistency. So before I was talking about how Web2 companies do something really well, and what they do is they organize complex, large networks of people really, really well. And so when you break that down, what it means to be organized as an experience, what you actually get is consistency. Right? The experience of being inside an organized network is consistent understanding of how the network behaves. Right? You have to be able to peg yourself, your psychological understanding of the network, against something that you know is immutable and won't move and is consistently going to be the same each day. Right? So that you can trust the network, so that you can understand how it flows and you can navigate it. Right? And so I had to figure out a way to use a token to create the same outcome for this network, but in a way that's decentralized, right? Without centralizing things, because obviously you can quickly achieve that through centralization. Right? It's obviously very, very easy to do that through centralization. So, so what I decided to do was to actually make the token slow release. So the token's released over a period of 5 years, the same exact amount every single day over 5 years.
And is that the RUG token?
This is the RUG token, that's correct, which is the utility token of the RUG radio ecosystem.
So RUG token is a 721?
It's a 7. No, it's just, well, it works. It's a not a 721. It's an ERC20 that's released through.
You're like, that's a whole
721. It's actually in this, and again, to the incredible work that Syndicate have done. They created an interlinking contract, so it's two contracts in one that is Legoed together, so that one can't exist without the other. Right. And so this is the amazing, people talk about how smart contracts can talk to each other and how amazing they are and how they fit together like Lego and all of these things that people say in practice, like in theory, but like this is that in practice. This is two Lego pieces stuck together in a very particular way to achieve a particular outcome over a long-term period in a specific direction, right? And so it showcases just how, how particular you can get with contracts if you really think them through.
Okay, continue describing. I interrupted you.
No, that's okay.
Continue describing sort of like what that end goal was, and how you're achieving it.
Yeah, so this is how it brings it all together. So
so the slow release.
The RUG tokens, the RUG radio rugs, which you see on OpenSea and you see in people's banners and the beautiful artwork that Jeremiah did. each of them produce a certain amount of tokens a day, depending on their rarity. So the standard ones produce 5, and up until the rarest ones, which produce 11, right? And so every single day, they produce the same amount of tokens for a period of 5 years, right? And those tokens then accumulate in your against your NFT, and then you can go to a custom-built dashboard, which Syndicate built for Rug Radio, and you can plug in your wallet and claim your tokens, right? And so then what's that do? What's the token for, and how does it fit into the whole ecosystem? And this is kind of where the whole circle kind of comes back in together. So the way that it fits in together is that the first utility, not the only utility, there's definitely a lot more to come, but the very first utility of the Rug token is to convert your Rug token to Rug DAO token and become a member of the network, become an owner of the DAO. Right. And the reason why we chose that as the very first utility was because for us as builders of this ecosystem, the most important thing we wanted to achieve first is to have a very broad, open membership base of owners in the DAO. Right? Because that is going to be who governs and builds the whole ecosystem. And so we wanted as many as we could possibly get, like as wide a community range, which is why we had a very particular way to launch the whole project, in making sure there was only one token per wallet and a whole heap of other things that we did. And just getting that out to as many people as possible, so that the first thing that they can do is take their Rug tokens, convert them to a DAO token, and become an owner of the network. Right? And so it seems almost that there's like a very limited amount of utility at the moment, but it's limited by design, in the sense that the first thing we want people to do is convert and become owners, and then we launch the rest of the tokenomics incentives and the utility that go along with that. But first off, you have to own, right? And so the Rug token converts to a Rug DAO token, and those tokens that you've used to convert to a DAO token go into the Rug Bank. Right. And the Rug Bank also has a special one-of-one token inside it, like NFT inside it, that produces a 10% of all tokens in the marketplace daily. So it receives a 10% top of every token that's produced in the marketplace. And so all of those tokens in the Rug Bank are pushed back out into the ecosystem through the host network and the partner network. And so every time you host, you receive Rug tokens, and then they go back out and they're back through into the DAO ownership, and so on and so forth. So there's like a circular motion of how the token moves through the ecosystem into the bank, back out of the bank, into the hosts, and so forth. So that's like the base structure of the whole ecosystem and how it all interlinks together.
Okay. I'm going to try and say this back in a few seconds. You have a DAO. You have the DAO. You have your company, call it, right, your decentralized company. It's called Rug Radio. Rug DAO is what it's called, right? That's your company. It's not an LLC because it's a nonprofit, correct. But there you go, Rug DAO. Rug DAO has money, yes, right, and that's your treasury.
We didn't even talk about that. Actually, sorry, we didn't talk about what we allocated to the DAO. That's a good point. So,
well, and I know it's generous. It's
50% of all.
It was like 50% of all initial sales, and then 70%.
That's correctable royalties.
Sorry, not
to
that's steal your fun.
Yeah, it's 50% of all the primary sales and 70% of all secondary sales for all of the tokens produced by the Rug ecosystem go into the DAO. So at the moment, that's somewhere around $5 billion.
Amazing. So you have the company, you've got your treasury, which it sounded like you said had sort of its own little mini DAO that operates within that bank. But let's not go. Cool, noted, little asterisk there, right? And then you have all these ways to be like a member, or like kind of an employee, but that's not really the right word. But to map it, like of this Rug DAO, this overall thing.
It's just a participant.
A participant, great. There we go. Right, you can be a member, which we'll probably talk more about. You can be a partner in some way, contribute to the ecosystem in a variety of ways. That probably mean like social media, spreading the word, that like being a marketer, being think of all the departments that you would have somewhere. Like if you fit into a department in like
content
ecosystem.
Yeah, so many things. Memes. I mean,
yeah, great.
Literally.
You're creative, whatever. And then you have the hosts who will have their shows, whether it's on Twitter Spaces or podcasts or YouTube or, whatever that kind of looks like. They're, the hosts. And then you have this ERC 20 / actually ERC 721 wrapped in 10,000 contracts, which we could do probably a whole episode on to understand that, that is slow released into this whole ecosystem. and then, over the course of 5 years, and then lives in this sort of circular motion where people get this token, they spend it to get to buy into getting to own the DAO overall. And then by doing that, it goes back into the treasury and then it goes out of the treasury back to the hosts. Okay, can I ask a couple questions on that came up as you were saying some of that? Well, and I don't want to take us too far afield, but I'm curious on the host front, because you mentioned the sort of compensation there is around volume and like length. Was that like duration of sort of putting out content?
Yeah, duration of being part of the network.
Like how long they're with us, right? Like a quarter.
How long
like
you're within Rug?
Yeah.
Was that a hard decision? Because I feel like there's so many different ways you can measure. Like you could measure engagement. Like, what if somebody's putting out a crazy amount of content, but it's like, not getting a lot of engagement. I don't want to say terrible, but like, like people aren't responding to it, and they're just, is that complicated for you guys at all? Or you're like, no, we feel good?
Yeah, it's definitely precarious, because this is what I was talking about, the unknown unknowns and what you're incentivizing, right? Like I genuinely don't think that the existing social networks set out to incentivize the outcomes that they have, right? But it was an externality of the structure of what they put forward, right? And then once they figured out what their externalities were, they were probably too deep into it to reverse engineer them to go somewhere else. So it's precarious to know that. And we still don't know. We're early, right? We still don't know what our true externalities are. There's still a long time before you can see them. And so it was more thinking through how do you create it so that this is what you incentivize now, but it has enough flexibility and pliability in it to allow that to shift if it's not correct later on. And then also the layers, how we incentivize participants, how we incentivize partners, and how we incentivize hosts are all different, and different layers of kinds of incentive. And so how we incentivize participants is very much what you're talking about around like engagement, whereas how we incentivize hosts is around contribution, right? And so it's still pointing to all the things that you're talking about, but it points to them in ways that we felt like were more aligned with a broader collaborative ecosystem. But yeah, it was hard. It wasn't easy to figure that out.
Okay. Yeah. There's so much to think about here. I'm like watching the clock and I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I've got like literally a bunch more questions. So I'm going to try and run through them, but I want to do this sort of tangible thing really quick. So I want to come be a host. Maybe I want to do a YouTube channel, and I come to Rug Radio. I'm like, hey, I want to come and be a part of this. You guys approve me. And so you give me a host pass, correct? I'll now get a host pass. And that's sort of my ticket now into this ecosystem. And what kind of support do you now offer? And do you kind of want to offer around, like if it's YouTube, for example, like, is there a little guide for how to get your YouTube channel set up? Like, what does that kind of piece look like for hosts or people coming onto your network?
Yes, literally what we're working on right now. And we have a head of hosts that just started working with us last week. We have director of operation also that started with us last week. Like we're actually building a fully structured team and everything. We're putting a bunch of templates out for hosts to start with us. I myself like to spend time with the hosts, and I want to get on with them on like a weekly call and be like, yo, like, let me help you guys build out your brands, right? Because I've been doing this for a minute, right? And it's more than that. It's just like building a network of hosts, because like you have your community, but then you have the network of hosts that sits above that. Because to me, like our hosts are like some of the most important, if not the most important people in the whole thing structure, because they're the educators. They're the teachers, right? It's like when you have society, the most important people in a society are the teachers, but they're also the less paid, right? But they're the educators. And so these people to me are so important, and it's just like being able to support them, to help them brand. So of course, like we have like, we're so early, right? We're second month in right now, and we're like launching a DAO, so really focused on that. But like definitely like the focus is like helping you come in, build out your brand. We have a massive audience, obviously through Rug Radio, through our Discord and different channels that we're building for you to be able to have more eyeballs, to have better understanding of how to build your brand, how to build your show and everything. So definitely our goal is like, we're like a Home Depot, except that you don't pay for the tools. Like you come in, we give you the tools, we help you build it, and you go off. And the cool thing about Rug Radio and the way we've built it is through Web3 ethos, is like we want nothing out of it. Like there's no IP, no ownership, nothing. You come in, we flourish together. And if someone wants to go and do their own thing, that's totally fine. we just want to help people build out, their platforms in Web3, essentially, because it started off with like me building my own platform, right? You saw that through the year. And I'm like, yo, how do I take a step back and help others build theirs so I can build something, bigger than myself, right? And be able to empower the space. And how do we have like hundreds of people out there just educating others, but also make a living?
Okay, so I'm so awesome. So I'm a host. I want to do a YouTube show. I come on. I get to pick your brain, Farokh, who's like truly an expert in this sort of world of social media, building community, all the rest of it. I also now have sort of a cohort of another 12, 40, whatever it is, sort of people who've come in
So
with
many
me.
people like
We're leveraging.
yeah.
You can like leverage insights from. Now I start putting out content, and as I'm putting out content, I'm accruing these rug tokens as a reward for that. And it's on a preset basis, and it's on the blockchain, and it's totally transparent how I'm getting that and all that. And now I can use those rug tokens to potentially buy an RDAO token, right? Which is my ownership. That's my DAO token. It's my way to kind of own the company that I'm in and vote on governance and the rest of that. So is that how that kind of piece works?
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the first utility we wanted to push out is the RDAO token. Like we want people to understand like governance. We want people to understand like what it's like to have equity or own something and be able to participate into something, right? It's like I can put out the laundry list of rug token utility I have on my desk. It's easy for me. Here, here's a rug shop because I want to open a rug shop with merch, right? I want to have our own merch. Everybody wants it, right? It's dope. We like merch. We like swag.
Yeah.
Or I can have a list where it's like, hey, like when you have a token, the beautiful thing is you can add so much utility to it, right? Yeah. But obviously there's this conversation right now about some DAOs not being DAOs or some DAOs not working, this and that. We kind of want to prove people wrong. And the whole thing in the, outside especially, it's like, yo, we can build a community-owned DAO that, governs over this whole company's, whatever we're trying to build, this conglomerate we're trying to build. And that's going to actually reward its participants and its holders for being there in the long term. So it's like, yes, the answer is yes. We want to push people to the RDAO as fast as possible because that's the first utility and the most important in my eyes. Like, what, you're going to put another piece of sweater on your back? Okay, that's cool. You want to rep the brand, that's fire. But like, at least own it first and learn about governance. Like our goal, like really Rug Radio is an education. It's a conglomerate, it's a tech company and it's an educational platform. And it's really important. Like our emphasis on education in Rug Radio, it's so important.
On the point of what Farokh's saying, it's like you can say all those things like long-term value and ownership and all of these things, and people in the marketplace go, okay, like, but what do they mean? Right? And so if you go back to when I was describing the DAO, I said that the rug bank sat in a sub DAO, right? And this tokenomics structure that we've built with Syndicate. So why is that important? And why do I talk about that when I talk about the tokenomics structure? Well, the reason why I go into that much specifics is because it's actually key to the way that the community will grow, create value for themselves in the long term or in the medium term. Because what that sub DAO structure allows us to do is it allows us to spin up projects that can be created by the community, voted on by the community, and then funded by the DAO. And those projects, whoever's in those projects and sits within them under this sub-DAO structure will benefit both directly and indirectly commercially from those projects. So those projects can pay out to the people that are building them, and it can also pay out to the DAO, again, broader, right? So the DAO makes a return on its investment in the projects, and then everybody that owns the DAO obviously benefits from having more capacity to invest in more things in the DAO. And then also the participants that take part in that don't just get funding from the DAO, let's say, they also get access to the entire network that sits within the project. So we're talking about partnerships with some of the biggest brands in the space and some of the biggest brands in the world, really. We're talking about, reach through all of these networks of hosts and content creators and supporters and owners and so forth. And these are things that they sit in a type of value that is hard to quantify with a number, but they sit in a value proposition space that's really, really rare and really difficult to get. And so it's using the compounding effect of that greater value to benefit every member that's within the DAO over the longer term.
Okay, I have my thorny question, but going off of what you just said, I noticed you have this new channel in the House of Farokh, I think, Discord, that is your updates, and you're giving these very detailed updates, like on a virtually day-by-day basis on everything you guys have going on.
Yeah.
And one thing that caught my attention recently was you're like, we have 2, I think, potential media partners that you're talking to or something like that. And this again goes into, because I think your point, Mel, is it's like hard to wrap your head around. And I think the more specific we can get, the kind of more it crystallizes for folks. So when you talk about having 2 potential media partners, you don't have to say who they are, but like, what does that mean? Does that mean other like ways for your host to distribute their content? Is that what that looks like? What is it? What would a partnership like that look like?
So what it looks like, it's actually 4 now. I just had
Oh, damn.
before you 2 more that we're working with, but they're all, like Matt was saying, it's like global brands, like massive companies. And just like you operate as a media company, like we are at the heart and pulse of the space, right? Rug Radio, we're like out there every day, whether it's myself or all the amazing hosts and people and the community that's out there every single day. And so when I tell you a media partner, and the reason why in the daily updates, it's almost daily, it's not every day, but like I try to update people in the spirit of transparency and like what we're working on, right? But I don't want to overhype and say who that partner is, because it's like, oh, partnership. You know how Twitter is.
Oh,
Rug
yeah.
Radio's
Oh,
partner.
yeah.
Like, miss me with that, you know? Like, let me just
Yeah.
close that, and then we make a proper article to announce that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's
totally.
like, but we're working, you know? So what a media partner looks like is like, look, like we have all these hosts, right? And we have all this reach. Like my personal page gets like 40 million visits a month. Rug Radio does 5 million a month. And we have all these hosts and all this stuff. Medium articles are crushing. The YouTube channel is launched, and we're going to have more and more and more, even our own app that we're building in order to like have everything streamlined and centralized in a place where people can get the information and everything, which is going to help a lot because everything's so scattered in our space. I think everybody knows that. But you know what it means is that we can have partners, and it's revenue for the DAO as a media company to help these partners get into the space. So to market
Okay.
them, to help them with their community. Yeah, it's literally like as a media company, like let's say, hey, like Carly, you host Overpriced. So it's like company X, we're gonna help you build yourself in the space. But obviously we vet the company. It's like, okay, so we think Carly's a good host for you. Carly should host this. Then we think that's good. We think Farokh is a good host for you, and this and that. So that not only is gonna help me and help us put even more money, in my opinion, in the pocket of our hosts, right? Because we can get them brand deals, but also at the same time in the DAO that serves as a media company for these like media outlets. So anyone can host a show with Rug Radio. A brand could come and host a show with Rug Radio with events that will be at South by Southwest, sponsor a panel, get on Farokh's Rug Radio, go out there, do this, do that. Let's get a Medium article written, right? As a media company, like an actual, like I want people to understand, like as an actual full-fledged media company, because we are fully operating.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it sounds like there are moments where like these companies you're partnering with, like they'll either pay one of your hosts for something because you think that's a good partner, or they'll pay the DAO for, you know, pushing out the content on the Rug Radio and the Farokh, you know, Twitter accounts or whatever. And that money just goes right into that Rug Bank treasury, or some percentage of it does. That's what you're describing there, essentially, right?
Not even just some percentage of it, like that all
Not some.
All of it. 100% goes. Okay.
Yeah, no, we're operating as a company, like whatever we bring in it. And I'm not even talking small, like we're talking like big 6 month, like let's go out there, let's find the proper companies to work with, and some of the bigger ones, the biggest ones right now, to actually serve them as a media, you know?
Yeah. Okay. And so now you're going to have the situation where you have this treasury, this rug bank, and it's going to have both rug tokens, which is sort of your native currency within the ecosystem, and it's going to have presumably fiat or USDC or ETH or whatever you guys are being paid in, some sort of other currency, correct?
Treasury sits in the main DAO, not in the rug bank. The rug bank is only for tokens. So the token structure is delineated from the main structure for purpose. And then all of the revenues, so the proceeds from the sales, the proceeds from the secondary sales, and the proceeds from any kind of partnership program actually sits under the main DAO treasury.
Okay. Understood. And then hosts and these partners, who are the two kind of categories that I'm assuming, you know, earn revenue in some capacity, are they paid both in, you know, crypto or fiat and in this sort of native rug token? How does that
the host yield, so every host pass yields rug token daily, depending on how much they're hosting.
Yeah, but then there's this reward for volume and like duration with the platform, and that reward
so it's all in, it's extra bonus in rug token as well.
That's all in rug. Okay. And
but
so then
I can get to like, we're still like, you know, we're literally like onboarding the partners. So that's something that's like tomorrow we could decide to change that and like, you know, have different set of rewards as well.
Cool. And so then the treasury that's not the rug bank, the treasury that just sits in the DAO from these partner programs that have come in from the sale of the NFTs, like this huge like treasury that you're building. There's, I'm assuming, voting on sort of how that gets utilized. Like this feels like such a silly question, but like what are you spending all that, that $5 million you have? Like how is that being determined? Where is that going?
We're not spending it at the moment at all. It's just accruing.
Just sitting there.
and
Okay.
So there's that. But once the DAO is operational, and the token is released, which is happening at the end of this month, which is exciting. That will then, there's a 6-month period in how we're launching the DAO, which has a governance council. The governance council will be voted in by every single token holder, both member and rug token holders. And that governance council will just represent the broader community until there's enough members that have earned enough tokens to get in and swap over and become members. So again, like just trying to ensure that it's decentralized from the whole way through, not half decentralized or kind of decentralized, whatever. So it's always community operated. And then there'll be a very clear governance structure on how you put proposals forward. In fact, this week on the education session that we're doing on DAOs, myself and Will are going to break down governance. So this is the topic that we're talking about this week. And then next week we're talking about proposals.
Beautiful.
So this will cover sort of all of the details of this. But essentially there's a process in which the types of proposals you can put forward, how many backers you need to have those proposals to get them through, how many people have to be in the teams, that the types of things that we expect for the proposals to be considered vetted and legitimate. And then the DAO gets presented with these proposals and they choose what projects the DAO's do. It's not up to us. It's not up to Farokh and myself. We just we completely out of as much in the decision-making process as anybody else in the DAO. Right? So it's up to then the DAO to choose what the DAO spends its money on, right? And our role, I guess, as far as like the creators of the DAO, is to think through the governance as a foundation to enough so that we have the right frameworks around how those proposals are put forward to ensure that the direction of the spending of that process, like those monies and the treasury, is done in a way that's for the betterment of the media ecosystem that's being built, right? So there's parameters as by which people can't just go, let's go and buy a CryptoPunk, right? Because it doesn't fit within the parameters of what either a community DAO or a media enterprise would do, right? But so there's definitely rules, right? But those rules are broad enough to allow innovation and creativity and community-driven projects and interesting things to come out that we would never think of, because they're community-driven.
Is there a liquidity pool or an expectation of some sort of like DEX situation for the rug tokens? Again, knowing I'm asking that question and it's like not exactly an ERC20, so and I still don't fully understand what the contract is, but like the resale of the rug utility tokens, is there an expectation around that, or are you?
So we created a utility token because it's against securities law to create a liquidity token as a not-for-profit. So our token is a utility token. And because it's a token like any other, the marketplace is free to create whatever it wants. Like we can't dictate what the marketplace does, as no one can in the crypto ecosystem. But for us, and our role in the token is that it's a purely utility token for the existence of the tokenomic structure in our ecosystem. And we have no involvement in any kind of liquidity play that might be attached to the token.
Unstoppable Domains is the #1 provider of NFT domains. With domains ending in .crypto, .x, or .nft, Unstoppable Domains lets you replace your long, complex wallet address with a human-readable address. Using Unstoppable, you can verify the ownership over your NFTs, log into Web3 apps, and join tens of thousands of people using them as their Twitter usernames. With Unstoppable Domains, you can have all of your crypto addresses registered to one single domain. So it doesn't matter where crypto payments are coming from or where they're going. By registering all of your crypto addresses to your Unstoppable domain, all of that is taken care of in the back end. Better yet, with Unstoppable Domains, you don't have to worry about gas costs or renewal fees because you own it. Buy your domain and you can show it off as your new Twitter username. So you can get your name for as low as $5 at unstoppabledomains.com. Everyone is talking about the metaverse these days, and we're all still trying to figure out what it actually is, because everyone is looking for how to get exposure to it. That is why a metaverse index fund is so important, because in such a young market, an index can give you broad exposure to all the various players who are building out all these digital worlds that will ultimately become the metaverse. And that's why you should check out the Metaverse Index from the Index Co-op. The Metaverse Index gives you simple, easy, and safe one-click exposure to the emerging open metaverse trend. The MVI Index contains some of the biggest metaverse projects out there, including Axie Infinity, Decentralized, Illuvium, and more. So join thousands of holders who have already trusted nearly $50 million to the MVI Index. And if you buy $500 of MVI on the Dharma app, you can receive $50 worth of ETH on the Polygon network. There's a link in the show notes for you to click so you can get started on your journey into the metaverse.
Okay. And you're a nonprofit. I think this model fascinates me because I find Web 1 and Web 2 media fascinating, and I find the ways they're broken fascinating. It also fascinates me because I think it's a harbinger of what's to come in a lot of industries where, there's a lot of industries with middlemen and, gatekeepers and shit that's going to be done away with. One of the things that I think, so this is what's behind my next question, which is, are you guys making money? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that you have to be in a very privileged position to be able to take something on and not make money from it. So I'm curious how the economics work for other people who maybe want to disrupt industries in a similar way, but need to make some money.
Yeah, we've been very transparent about the revenue distribution between the team and the DAO and everything else. So as a team, with the secondary sales, there's a 70% that's going to the DAO and 30% of it goes to the core team. And structure. Of the primary sales that we took that didn't go to the DAO, 50%, so there was 50% that went to the DAO, and then you've got another 50%. So another 50% of that 50% was set aside for tax and, all the things that we need to do there. And then, which is a lot. And then the balance of that, the second 50% of that was a percentage of it was split between the team, and then another large percentage of it was actually held for the first 6 months of operation to bring on the head of operations, the head of partners, the head of members, the head of the DAO, that run the community, et cetera, et cetera. So eventually that will all move over as an expense under the DAO. But we knew that in the interim, while the DAO was still getting built and the project being structured out in the ecosystem, we would require a runway. And so we put a runway in place from the proceeds of the primary sales.
It's just like how it should be, in my opinion. Obviously, you need to be incentivized as a founder to want to continue working, but also it's like you should be incentivized for working, right? You should be rewarded for working, right? So I love the way we set it up. I'm actually really proud of ourselves. When it comes to that, that's something I'm really vocal about, is that we're giving so much money to these projects without knowing what they're doing. And the second you have a roadmap, you're a business. So there's expectations, no matter if you're a PFP project or whatever. We're a business. We came right off the bat. We're not a PFP, we're a business. We're running an enterprise that we're trying to build that's going to be owned by you guys. So it's we're putting 50% there, and then we're doing this and that, and then there's this piece of the second as well. So I'm really happy of the way we set this up, because it manages, to put a significant amount of money on the side for the company to have revenue, because the 70% is no joke. We've catered over 600 Ether in the first month and a half of profit in the DAO when it comes to secondary sales. So, which is a lot. When you're launching a startup, most startups, they're trying to make money. We're talking about $40 million of volume in the first month and a half for a media company, right? So we managed to do that, but at the same time, enough for our team to be okay, let's go. We want to wake up in the morning and do it, right? So I think we found the perfect balance, and I hope that people really use that as a standard.
Yeah. Okay, here's the thorny question, because when we think about what's gone so wrong in Web 1 and Web 2, I think probably what comes top of mind to a lot of people, one of the things is misinformation. And then from misinformation, you get to censorship and deplatforming. And these are just a mishigosh of just thorny questions that in some ways are at the core of human beings. You kind of can't tech your way out of these problems. I'm curious how you guys think about this, and how you think a DAO structure helps or if anything can help.
I have a response for this, and it's simplified. So there's obviously nuance in my thinking around it. So I just want to preface it with that, because I understand that this topic is thorny for sure, and everybody has an opinion on it. And so just speaking on behalf of myself now, not on behalf of Rogue Radio either. If you think about, let's say, like the extreme version of it, and neo-Nazi wants to produce content for Rug Radio, right? I mean, a terrifying thought process, right? So where's the line of free speech and access and tolerance, right? Of this thing. Well, for me personally, like, there's no tolerance for that behavior, right? And so then you go, okay, so what's the next step of that? Like, and I think probably most people would agree that there's no tolerance for that behavior, right? As an extreme example. And so,
it's the where do you draw the line question.
Where's the line drawn? So you can say, okay, as a DAO, we all vote. There's no tolerance for that. They're not allowed on the ecosystem, right? But where decentralization sits in this argument is that that's fine. They can no longer be in the system, but we as individuals and as a collective have no right over their ability to own or not own. If they want to own, they can buy it in the free marketplace. If they don't own, they don't buy it in the free marketplace, right? And that's where the line is. The line is the freedom to choose what they own and don't own, just like everybody should have that. Whereas as a community, as an ecosystem, we get to have the freedom to choose what we tolerate and what we promote and what exists in our ecosystem, right? And so for me, the line sits there. And you can see this as an example, and it's a very fresh example, so I don't want to dive too much into it, but with the ENS example. So there was a situation there where everybody strongly disagreed with the behavior and didn't tolerate it, and he was removed from the situation, but no one can take away his ownership, right? And that's a really important thing. Even if you don't agree with it, that person should have that benefit, it's a really important thing to say everybody has the right to maintain the ownership of what they own.
I strongly agree with that. Like, you should never, like, it's about ownership, right? Our space is really about the ownership. And I think that as long as you don't have power to take over ownership from someone, but, you know, it's like, we don't want that person to be a representative of the space anymore, right? So that's different.
And I think what's appealing here is I think neo-Nazism, thankfully, really is a fringe ideology. So if you're a DAO where there's a collective decision-making component happening, that's just not going to be allowed, because the majority do think that's like really, really wrong. And I think where there's really exciting potential in the DAO media landscape is it's no longer like a handful of editors coming out of, in some cases, like a handful of schools, right? Like kind of making that determination. It, like, I would find CNN more interesting if the hosts, who are the people that I'm there to watch anyways, were really the ones who fully got to decide together what could and could not stand. And right now what you have all these people in the background that you don't know, that I have no, even sort of parasocial relationship with, right? Like, who I know are pulling strings and saying, look, I worked for Andrew Yang's presidential campaign. I know from firsthand from people telling me that they were told, like at MSNBC and other places, like, hey, don't talk about Yang. Or if you talk about him, you have to say he doesn't have a chance to win. Like, and whereas if a community's like, I don't think in mass that decision would have been made, right? If it wasn't sort of a couple of individuals. So I find that exciting, and we'll never be able to solve this issue, right? No. But I think having the group control the narrative is interesting, and is at least another model.
Our literally our just do it is own the narrative. You know what I mean? Like, you know how 659 speaks about seizing the means of production. This space is all about owning the narrative, the memes, and the conversation. And this is exactly what the ethos
memes.
Of is.
I mean, it's funny, right? But meme memetics is a fundamental part of the way not just this ecosystem, but all ecosystems work. And
I mean, we're called Rug Radio.
and
yeah. Well, I'm overpriced JPEGs, right? Sort of being like tongue in cheek about like, like irreverent. It's like,
And this is like you're hitting on something so fundamental around like, why even do a decentralized? Like, why bother, right? Like, why bother with all this? Because it's not easy, right? Yeah. So why bother building something like this, right? And the why bother is because we can build the best coolest things in the world in crypto. Like we could build the coolest stuff ever made, but if we don't own the narrative, we will not win. This space will not survive. Like it's really that simple.
Just like this space is not surviving. No, but just like Web 2 like is getting to a point where you almost feel like it's getting like strangled and it's begging for air. Just like how at some point Instagram and social platforms replaced news outlets and CNN and TV and like this, and just like new ones are coming and they're coming up for air. There's a reason why. And because at some point it's kids like me and they're like, yo, like I'm sick and tired of this shit. Like I don't own it. I'm only adding value to this. Like it's happened to me with platforms. I've left previous platforms where I just felt like I'm bringing you so much value, and I'm at the point where it's not even entitlement. It's just like it's like, how much more can I give you?
Yeah.
Like where I could get something out of it, like even a teeny thing.
Well, and I don't think it's entitlement. It goes back to the thing I was saying that excites me at the top, right? Which is like if I'm spending 10 hours on a Twitter space, somebody says I'm wasting time, but somebody's also making money off of that. Why shouldn't I be a part of making the money off of that? Like there's money to be made from an activity and it's my activity.
Even below, like even the person even below that, like yeah, I could like make something out of that because I'm on all day, but like what about the person that's listening to me all day? Like I want that person generally, like that wag me mentality is not just a freaking like say, oh wag me, like it's not how it is. Like I know people want to make fun of it, but it's not. Like it's like we have ways to like build generational wealth individually, all while building wealth for the people around us through crypto and NFTs.
So the last question, and so I interviewed Justin Kahn. We were talking about how Twitch would have been built in the Web3 world, and I was asking like how would have that has changed his incentive structure as a founder and his economics and whatever. And you know, he made an interesting point, which is he's like, I wouldn't have been able to sell it. You know what I mean? Like you can't exit a decentralized company, which is like a huge mindset shift if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like that's like fundamental. So this company is not something that. Well, and again, it's a nonprofit structure, literally, but it's not something you can exit or sell if you build this really successful media brand, correct? So that's interesting, and maybe comment on that. But you know, the big question is 5 years from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, like would love to just kind of hear each of your like visions of like the ideal of what this looks like. And knowing it's never going to sell, it's going to it's going to be owned by the people. Speak on that. Yeah.
For me, the ideal is that whatever structure that, I mean, I obviously come at this from the tokenomics perspective as opposed to the marketplace perspective. But so from my viewpoint, I look at the structure and I hope that somebody comes in and adds to it and really makes it better. Because this is V1. It feels like V1, right? It's like the first take at how to do this. And I'm sure it's not right. Like I'm sure there's so many things that will be shown out by the market that there's ways to do it better, right? And so I'd love to come and look at this in 5 years' time and see all of the ways in which the collective, the commons, have taken something and made it so much better for the ecosystem. And so from that perspective, that's what I'd really love to see. And then just from the general marketplace perspective, I just, like I said at the very beginning, I'm a pretty much staunch decentralization advocate. And so if I could imagine a world where power was held accountable by truth through the commons, I think that would be an extraordinary place to live in. And I hope that my children grow up in a world like that, where they feel like they can speak truth to power through the commons, through something they own in the commons. Like that's exciting for me to think about. So yeah, that's what I hope for from this.
Awesome. I love it. Mel, I'm so glad I got to know you a bit better on here. Thank you so much for joining. I know you got to run. This is amazing. Your brand is amazing. I would love to chat more. So I'm sure hopefully we'll stay in touch.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And for listening to what we've built. Really, really appreciated so much. So thank you.
It's amazing. Bye.
And
Farokh, paint your vision.
Well, my vision is just like I never built, like we never built, even from the get-go, like there was never even a question like what if we want to exit and like sell it? Like even people were asking us like, so can it be bought? Like can Facebook, like Meta come here and like say, oh, you're the biggest brand in the space and we'll buy you out? It's like, no, they can't. Actually, the way it's set up, it can't be bought, right? And because it's through the true ethos of what we're trying to build, it's like to give it to the people. And we're building on top of it, right? Like that's literally how I think this will be successful. Could have gone the traditional route, started a media company, called the boys at A16 and the fam out there, because we got friends everywhere. Shout out to the VCs too and the angels. They're very important to every space. But like, that's not what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to truly show the world that I can build and we can build a company through NFTs. That's really what it is. And that's what's so revolutionary about it. And I want people, and I'm doubling down on this because I really want people to understand that. We just showed everyone that we can raise 2,100 ETH, which was equivalent to $7 million on the day of launch, exactly on the dot, through NFTs, and build something that will be successful, but also owned by the people. Like I'm a true, like, I'm a really a pure, like, as well, you know, how as much as Mel is a purist in terms of decentralization, I'm really a purist in terms of community building. And so really wanting to reward the people that believed in me personally and that followed the journey of Farokh in this space from the get-go, that then evolved into something bigger than me. I want this to outgrow me by 10 million times. And that's what's already doing. I'm seeing it. People are starting to value our hosts and the treasury. And then there's the DAO. And I'm slowly just going to blend in. Like, I had to buy my rugs in the secondary market.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, straight up. Like, everyone had one. No, I posted, like, yo, I just swept it. And like, cause I'm allowed if it comes from my personal like pocket, right? And I'm a dog wallet, verify everything. So like, that's what I want. And it's gonna go to the people. Cause like and even like money wise, like there's so many different avenues for myself, for my co-founders, everybody to just go out there and make money in the NFT space anyways. And we're gonna keep on building things. Like we're gonna add layers to it. There's Rug Radio. We're gonna incubate brands and companies and keep building from within, right? So there's so many different ideas and layers that we can add to this. And in my opinion, like it's extremely bullish because like you can just do so much more out of that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Have you compromised making the maximum amount of money you possibly could for the sake of doing what's right? Or do you feel like this, in narrow terms, yes, but in the broader sense, you'll actually be able to make a lot more because of what you're building here?
I swear to God, my first mentor was 18. He got started in that whole stuff. Like, was like, yo, think about the 10-year plan.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, Rug Radio, I was talking about it with my community the other night. It was like all inspired and stuff. I was like, 2021 was my 10th year actually grinding social media. Started in 2011 with Tumblr. And this is my 11th year. And it actually all came into place on the 10th year. I actually, all my life, I put aside short-term money. So I was never super rich. I was always doing good. But I was never like, I was seeing some of my friends going to get rich quick and like fucking Ferrari this, nice house, apartment in LA. I always stayed in my home in Montreal, you know, and this and that. And it's just like, but I was always doing good. It's just, but never doing bad, but I was never doing crazy. But on year 10, it's like, it hit hard, right? Life changed. And here it is, we're building something in 10 years. So the answer to this is like short term, I probably did. Like, probably did, right? Built something. Look at the valuations these companies are getting nowadays. Yeah. Like, oh, this thing's $500 million. That's $1 billion. Like, I swear to God, I make it sound easy, but it's actually not that hard nowadays to build something crazy and get insane valuations from it and then go out there. Like, you just you have to really go out and get it, right? But long term, the answer is no. I don't think I let anything off the table. I genuinely think that we're going to be able to all become successful together. That's my goal. I want everybody around me. Like, I'm seeing it through NFTs. I'm like, wow, like we were telling people to buy apes like 0.2 and I'm seeing all my homies get money now. And I'm just like, let's fucking go. Like on a bigger level, on a bigger scale right now, it's the same thing, right? Like we're going to be able to build that. I'm not worried. Like I literally live in the mentality of like, the more you give, you're going to get tenfold. You receive tenfold. And if you actually live in that like mentality and the mindset of abundance your whole life, like you're gonna get tenfold. So yeah, like the answer is yes and no, right? It's like yes in the short term, but no in the long term. I don't think so.
And that's why I think it's such an important point to highlight, because we're so kind of conditioned to think of like, oh, he had $1 billion acquisition or whatever, right? And so that's why I think some people look at this space or look at this like, this will never work, like this doesn't make sense. And I was even guilty. Yeah. Well, I was guilty of this.
Why would I bet on a founder who wants to exit his own company? What the fuck? Like, that was what to straight up. Like, you're building to, it's like, hey, I'm building to exit. That means you're building to exit, but then the consumer is just gonna consume to consume, and then it's just gonna pass hands. But like, I'm building because I want to freaking build, you know, and then it'll work out. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just go build something else. But it's gonna work out because I'm gonna put my time and attention towards it because I got my name on this. But it's just like it's just like so weird. This like, mentality, and I've been an entrepreneur since I'm 18, so of course my whole life I was conditioned to like, you got to build to exit. I'm like, it never sat right with me. It's like, what would you want to exit? You know, so many founders go back and buy out their own companies again, or just build the same thing again because they're like, fuck, I wish I'd never exited, or I wish I'd never taken VC money because now I don't actually own it. Me, it's like, yo, you want to be an investor in Rug Radio? You can be Sequoia, A16Z, the biggest guys. You can be a billion, you can be Bill Gates, whatever. You can be Carly, you can be Farokh, or anyone on the ground level. You have to buy the NFTs. That's how you invest in Rug Radio.
Well, and that
that's
was
the
an
beauty of it.
interesting
It's like
piece.
anyone can-
That OSF thread that, you know, I liked.
Yes.
And I, like, right, he kind of made that point of, he's like, why I think this is a great investment if you're like a regular person,
gets
right?
it.
Is you're going to get rug tokens. You know, my rug Genesis NFT is going to feed me this rug utility token. And if Facebook wants to come along and buy Rug Radio, they just have to buy all of the rug utility tokens, which we may or may not allow for. Or I don't know if it was the utility token, whatever. The point being, like, they have to actually just buy out the tokens, which in theory should
literally
drive
cannot,
the price of
you
these tokens
cannot
up.
buy all the tokens.
Right.
Like, you cannot. It's impossible. We ran the math. Like, you cannot buy it all. So it's like there's never even more than 400 NFTs listed of 20,000 on the marketplace right now. There hasn't been once more than like 500, which is sick, right? But it's just like, and that's what, like, you know, that's what I'm focused on, is really the big picture. Like, and people are gonna get to that because there's gonna be a point where a lot of stuff is gonna crash, and a lot of like quick whatever project is gonna go up and down, and we're just gonna still be here delivering content to the people because media is never gonna die. Media has been going on forever and ever. And also, like, people want to be entertained, and we're actually like, it's our creators are native. It's like the people, literally. Like, I'm one of the people too. Like, it's like you're one of the people too. It's like all of us just like getting together to create content for the space.
What are you looking for in hosts? Right now, you've got applications. I know you've onboarded a whole series, like your kind of first cohort. When people are applying, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for originality. I'm looking for entertainment. I'm looking for depth of information. I'm looking for wealth of information. I'm looking for intelligence. I'm looking for fun. There's all sorts of shows, right? Some are hilarious. Some, like, we got Nyla with kids on the blockchain for like younger crowd. We got photography. We got music NFTs. We got psychedelic shows. We got NFT Fantasy League. That's what I'm looking for. Like, right now I have a group of lawyers that are like, hey, like, we don't have a legal show. I think we should go. And I'm like, wait, like, we don't have that yet. Let's go. Like, you know, it's just like, and also, obviously, with the partners we're talking to, like the potential partners, like, they could bring in like their corps and like all the people to like just all their eyes, and to also to Rug Radio and host a show within the space. Obviously, like, we want them to like match the ethos and what we stand for, which is very important. Ideally, working with mostly, if only, not only Web3 native companies and people. That's the goal, right? To highlight them. That's what we've done so far. And yeah, like, it's just like there's so much that can be done, but that's just what we're looking for. It's just like, you know, like, originality, fun, you know, people that are actually in the space for good reasons. Like, that's what it is. Essentially, I mean, it's gonna be in the hands of the people soon, so they're gonna be able to vote on shows, and they're gonna decide what they like, right? So it's
So
you know, the
that was a
marketplace
question I
will
had.
decide,
That
but-
will be something where I'll apply
Yeah.
to be a host, and the governance folks who hold the governance tokens will vote and say,
Right now
yes,
it's a
you get to have a
pilot.
show.
Right now we're picking 50, right? I'm at 20 deep right now. Picking like 50, which is pilot shows, but you know, at some point, like, that's why, like, I'm so bullish on this, because it's like called the network effect. Like, this is literally a network effect of information and people, and it's just gonna go be everywhere. And in my opinion, it's gonna be everywhere for the right reasons, and we're gonna do the job of like educating people. Like, a lot of people are like, yo, I don't want to open Instagram. It's so toxic out there. There's so much rug pulls, but like, someone has to do it. Or else people are going to keep getting rug. Like, someone has to go out there and create the content. And guess what? This morning, this kid's like, yo, I can help you with the Instagram content. Okay, let's go. Let's get it. This other person in my community is like, yo, I'm a YouTube SEO expert. Let's go. Let's get it. Like, it's crazy the amount of, look, betting on Rug Radio is literally betting on the community, because we're community oriented. It's literally like, when you go on my Discord right now, we have conversations about like how we're gonna build things, do this, do that. Wait, I said, yo, we're gonna be in Austin. Who's a videographer in Austin? Boom, bang. Like, there's so many people. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm bullish on. That's what I'm not worried on. Like, people, you can floor prices increase, decrease, this, that. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me, because it's so clear to me where we're going over the next 10 years that I'm so not like worried about this, because I'm there. Like, I'm already there. mentally, and so is our team, right? And that's what I love. And even our community right now is being conditioned to think about the long term in a space where time is so warped that you think about quick pump, quick dump, right? We're conditioning our community to really think about the fact that we're building a company through NFTs. This is revolutionary. Like, I'm surprised, like, we're not like, and the thing is, I haven't had the time to do this whole PR push, this, that, get on this interviews and this, that. Why? Because we're so head down building. Honestly, like, you're catching me after like another 10 hours straight of like calls, right? And it's just like, that's what we're up to. Like, we just want to build something for the community where one day I can step back and just watch it grow. That's really the idea.
I think also sometimes the stage in the kind of ecosystem that we're in right now sometimes punishes projects, and I mean that sort of economically in terms of their valuation, that do have a specific vision. Because like we're still sort of in this hypey phase where it's like, oh, I can project that this could be anything, and I'd rather buy that than a thing that's telling me it's something amazing, like, you know?
I could have launched through a PFP and said, we're in talks with Disney.
Yeah, like, yeah, 100%.
Of course I'm talking to the biggest brands in the world, because when you have a following on Twitter, they already reach out to you anyways.
Yeah.
So like myself, like Farokh, as the business person, the influencer, whatever you want to fucking call it, like, obviously, like, there's already like this demand from these people, but I'm not going to use that to like boost my project because it doesn't work that way. I'm trying to set up meaningful collaborations and partnership with brands, which is going to drive value to the space and to the DAO. That's essentially what I'm looking for when I'm working with a partner. So I could name you the two people I was on the phone with today. It's so crazy, actually, because some of two global brands, but it's like, for what?
Right.
I'll come in a month.
Because it's
and I'll be
also
like,
about attract. If you have a long-term orientation, you want to attract the right audience. Like, you don't want to attract the audience that's just in it to flip, or who's going to freak out because they haven't made enough money on it. You want to attract the audience that fundamentally gets what you're doing and wants to stand by you for that. Are you an extrovert? I'm going to reward them too.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm like an introverted extrovert. I'm extroverted like AF, but the thing is, like, there's a lot of shit I just like, you know, it's like it's like, I feel like there's only 10% out there, even though it seems like more.
No, that it's interesting, because I would kind of describe myself on that line too. Like, I can extrovert, I think, really well, and then I'm like, okay, now I just need to like shut down and like like, you know, kind of shut out the world, like, to recharge. Which is fascinating though, because you're so good at just like, you know, talking to the community like that. That's where for me, and I don't have a reason to launch an NFT program right now, but of course you're in this space. People are like, when are you going to launch an NFT? And I'm like, when I have a reason to. But the thing for me is like I'm exhausted. I think the community stuff is so important, but the idea of now having I'm tired with what I do. And like the idea of having to output emotionally that much, I'm like, oh, I can't do that right now. I'm not ready.
It's exhausting. Anybody, if you're trying to drop a project and you don't have the nerve to handle a mob of people come at you the second your floor is down, quit. Like, don't quit. I mean, by that,
don't do this route. Do a different route.
Is like, wait. Like, I waited a whole year before launching a project. You have people that haven't been in the space for 2 weeks. They launch a project and then they expect like the world. Like, it's just like you got to be ready for it. Like, sometimes you're just like, I swear to God, some days I wake up. Actually, every day I wake up, I'm like, all right, you're insane, and let's go. Like, I think I genuinely think I'm crazy, Carly. But like sometimes, but it's okay because I love chaos, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, and I love that kick of like that stress, that anxiety. Like, I thrive off that too. I'm insane, I guess. I don't know. That's every entrepreneur has a little bit of crazy in them. But but I also love what I do, and I do it with passion. And I have a lot of heart and soul into it, right? And if you don't have that, you're never going to be able to make it in this space because it requires that extra little passion in order to go every day, right? But the thing is, it's just like you gotta like it's just like a project requires just like I have 14,000 holders. There's 14,000 people every day.
Oh my God. Is that like
Pardon?
That's big. That's massive.
It's one of the it's one of the projects with the most amount of holders in the space.
We should have led with that. Holy shit!
And when the DAO launches, it's gonna be one of the DAOs as per Syndicate DAO with the most amount of participants in the entire crypto space. Go figure. When I went big, and the thing is that because we can do it, and we're gonna do it because we're building the right team. Like we have the right intentions. You know, our minds are at the right place. And we have also the knowledge and the capacity to build it because we have a community behind us of builders, and we have investors. Investors means the people who invested in the community, in the project, that actually believe in it. and everybody who doesn't have to you vote with your wallet. That's what I love about Web3 is if I don't disagree with this, I can just sell it and I vote with my wallet. And the beauty of it is that we have people that are just determined to help us build this. And I will see the end of it. And it's going to be sick. So it's just like now my focus is on building this entire thing and infrastructure. And we're already working on incubating 2 projects, already working on 4 media partnerships in order for us to show people now how it's tangible, how you're going to be able to see, this come to fruition. And it's really cool to do. The DAO is launching like 15, 20 days.
And today is the 2nd for context for folks. Okay, I'm going to ask you the last question because you've been on for so long. Okay, this actually is circling back because I've heard you say this before. You said it on here, and I feel like this is a really fundamental point to what you're doing, and I don't fully understand it yet. And so I'm imagining there's somebody else who feels that way. So this is this point you make that I think is really profound, but I need it spelled out a little bit more, which is the kind of Web 2 is platform creators, and this is the creators the center, the participants, creators, platform. Can you flesh out a little bit more? Like, so Web 2 is platform, creators, consumers.
Web 2 is platform, creator, consumer, meaning platform comes first. It extracts all of the value, the $1 billion valuation, the ad money, everything. Picture Instagram. Instagram comes first. Twitter comes first. They're the one publicly traded. Then come the creators, whatever, because they get some kickback, some way. They get ads, money, this and that. They create, but they get nothing much more than that. And then the consumers just literally get like almost like dumped on. Like you're literally just like scrolling. You're scrolling. And sometimes, honestly, your IQ's lowering. It's bad for your mental health. I come from the Instagram space. I've built tens of millions of pages of followers worth of, like I still have 10 million followers on Instagram, I think. I don't even log back in. I don't know. So I've done it. I know what it's like. I see what it does to people. I see how people get hooked up on it, right? So there's no, like, it's almost zero stuff. Like the consumer essentially gets absolutely nothing out of it, but the dopamine and stuff like that. And we fucked up like the mental health of people. Like the Web 2 platforms have done that to people, right?
Yeah.
Web 3 flips it. It's participants first. The people who get the most amount of value out of this is the participant, right? Which are our holders and the people learning. And this is not because they get something out of it directly, because they get to own the infrastructure. Then the creators, which to me are the educators, the teachers, they're the bridge. And then the platform, which is Rug Radio, right? And so to me, when I started on Instagram, in the NFT space, last year, I went on the Whale Shark podcast. Early on, he picked me up in March, and I was just a nobody. And he's like, you're going to be the bridge between NFTs and the mainstream world. And so I made it my mission to become a bridge. What does that mean? I want to take the mainstream space and I want to take the NFT space and the community and bridge them together, because there's so much beauty in both of them. And if you manage to build a bridge, then that's what you're going to do. And they used to call me the bridge as a joke, right? So that's what I always wanted to be, because I'm like, I don't want to be OpenSea, and I'm not a painter, I'm not an artist, I'm not this, but I can be this platform in the middle, this creator that just bridges everyone together. So that's the most important
awesome.
people, because they're the educators, right? And then the platform. So yeah, essentially, Rug Radio gets a lot of value out of it, but it goes back to the participant and the creator because they own it.
Yeah.
So it's
that when you say it flips it, it's that click for me now that it is value extraction or the value, right? Like the platform, that's the piece that I hadn't clicked in terms of that analogy you're giving. But it is profound. I'm glad we flushed that out.
It's
well,
profound.
Farokh,
Like there's so much thinking.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I am so grateful to you and of course to Mel, who's now gone, for hopping on here. I have a Twitter space actually that I have to onto in a few minutes. So, and I've already taken a ton of your time, but this is so, I think, hopefully really helpful for the audience. Amazing, exciting. I think it's amazing because it's such an interesting new test case or study of how media can be run. But I also think you're building a model that a lot of other industries will want to study at, like, they're going to study this in like Harvard Business School someday.
No,
it's like
that's what we're building. I hope to be copied. It's open source, everything. Go ahead, build it. Because at the end of the day, like, that's what's beautiful about this space. It's like you can copy it, but you can never replicate. Like you can take someone's idea, but you can't take someone's energy. So rugby is always gonna have its own energy, and I hope that people will come and see what we're building and really highlight it, because I really think we're changing the space and the world as
Yeah.
a whole. So I'm
Yeah,
excited.
what's the best call to action? Folks, go join the Discord. Where would you send people who are like, okay, now I'm
Yeah, I
interested.
mean,
Where do I go?
come through. Follow my Twitter, follow the Discord. I mean, the both Twitters. Like, there's my Twitter, there's Mouse Twitter, there's the Rug Radio.
We'll link to them all
All
below.
the
Yeah.
Discord links are in our. Yeah, I mean, the Discord link is in Rug Radio bio and in my bio. It's the easiest way to go. So definitely come to the Discord is so. I hate Discord, but our Discord is lit. Like, there's so much. Like, we added the alpha channel just for members. We have like the learn to earn programs in there. We just have so many cool people that are just like willing to like educate you. Like, you'll go in there and ask a question, you'll have someone answering it.
Yeah, I can vouch for it. It's a good Discord. You and Zen Academy, I love. Like, good vibes in these places. Okay, Faroukh,
Educators,
you're the best.
Educators, you see?
Yeah,
Educators.
totally. Yeah, that's definitely who I've kind of gravitated to as I've ventured through this space are folks like you and Zeneca.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Awesome.
You're an educator too. You're extremely important to the space. So
Thank you. Trying. All right. Well, this is awesome. We'll, I'm sure, talk again. We'll follow up in, I don't know, 6 months, a year, catch up on everything that will have been built in that time. I can't even imagine where you'll be at that point, given how fast you move. And thanks again. I'm so excited we finally were able to make this happen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Farokh. Talk to you later.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head over to Bankless HQ right now to develop your crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless Premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless Premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.